From the heart of South Asia to the crossroads of Central Asia, from the turbulent Middle East and North Africa to the power corridors of the West, where narratives collide, perspectives matter, and stories connect. This is Beyond Borders. I am Omar Khalid. But during the hour, we'll try to decipher stories that will connect all of you, but also be effective in this changing world and bring you the updates as to what is happening across the world. We'll begin with the top stories of the day, otherwise known as region lines. We start from the Middle East, where the second round of talks between Hamas and Israel begins in Sharm el-Sheikh for a Gaza ceasefire and prisoner swap deal. Meanwhile, Palestinian civilians are making a grim milestone, mourning their martyred near and dear ones as a result of Israeli aggression, bombardment, airstrikes and ground defense. Palestinians have lost over 67,000 people all over the last 2 years. In South Asia, DG ISPR Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry says Pakistan is not part of any arms race with India. In an interview with Bloomberg, he commended the effective performance of Pakistani weapon systems, including Chinese platforms, integrated into the Pakistan Armed Forces during Marka-e-Haq. While in the Indian-occupied region of Ladakh, India's escalating repression has triggered widespread concern as violent censorship and arbitrary arrests continue to deepen unrest and fuel public anger. The situation is seen as a blatant attempt by the Modi-led Hindutva regime to crush Ladakh's peaceful struggle for constitutional rights and autonomy. Also, a shocking incident unfolds inside India's Supreme Court in which a lawyer hurls shoes at the Dalit Chief Justice B.R. Gavai during court proceedings. The incident sparks outrage across India, exposing the deep-rooted caste and communal bias permeating Indian society under the Modi regime. In the West, Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences awards the 2025 Nobel Prize in Physics to a trio of US scientists for work on quantum mechanic tunneling. The award will be presented to John Clark, Michael H. Deveray and John M. Martinez in December for the discovery of macroscopic quantum mechanical tunneling and energy quantization in an electric circuit. Earlier, American scientists Mary Brunkow and Fred Ramdell and Shimon Sakaguchi from Japan won the 2025 Nobel Prize in Medicine for work shedding light on how the immune system spares healthy cells, creating openings for possible new autoimmune disease and cancer treatments. And lastly, the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago has sued President Donald Trump, seeking to block the deployment of federalized National Guard troops to Chicago as hundreds of National Guard troops from Texas head to the nation's third largest city. Trump threatens to use emergency powers against a rebellion to deploy more troops into Democratic-led U.S. cities. We'll begin with the Middle East and North Africa. A lot has been happening there as well, whether it be the flotilla and all those who were arrested in international waters, mind you, and then, of course, then deported to other countries. That includes Greta Thunberg, who says that under the current circumstances, the onus of attention should be on the Palestinian cause and not those who have been arrested in the flotilla. More in the following report.
It's been 2 years today since Israel unleashed its relentless assault on Gaza. More than 67,000 Palestinians have been killed, and thousands more remain buried beneath the rubble. Entire neighborhoods have been flattened. Children, once full of laughter, now make up the faces of grief. Children have been the silent victims. At least 20,000 children are among the dead, or one child killed every hour. That's 1 out of every 33 people in Gaza. UNICEF calls the situation catastrophic as Gaza faces severe hunger, disease, and mass displacement, millions forced to flee with nowhere safe to go. Nearly 300 journalists and media workers have been killed in Gaza since October 7th, including 10 from Al Jazeera, and yet Israel's atrocities remain unabated. As Gaza bleeds, the world marks another grim anniversary, one defined by displacement, starvation, and silence. Now, hopes are being pinned on new Israel-Hamas talks, hosted by Egypt and mediated by Qatar and the United States. The discussions have stretched over 4 hours of intense sessions, aiming to break deadlocks on crucial points: the handover of captives, release of Palestinian prisoners, and unhindered entry of humanitarian aid. At the heart of the talks lies Donald Trump's peace plan, proposing an international stabilization force for Gaza. Meanwhile, there's relief for some. The Gaza flotilla activists, including Greta Thunberg and Pakistan's Mushtaq Hussain, abducted by Israel from international waters, have finally been released.
Do not let me and other volunteers on the flotilla be a distraction. And the Global Summit Flotilla is about solidarity with Palestinians, international solidarity. And what Israel did was mainly not to illegally abduct us in international waters and abuse us in prison, but it was that it stopped a humanitarian mission and violating international law by preventing humanitarian aid from entering Gaza, a population that are being systematically starved by Israel. And this is a blatant violation of international humanitarian and maritime law. Israel think that they can get away with only recycling their old arguments and smear campaigns to justify their atrocities without addressing the evidence of them committing a genocide. But the world sees through their desperate lies.
2 years on, Gaza still stands in ruins. Israel remains unabated.
As Greta Thunberg says, we can see through the Israeli lies. To discuss more on that and the situation emanating from Gaza, we've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Haitham Naser. He's a senior journalist and correspondent of TRT International Research, International Relations researcher as well. Thank you very much, Haitham, to have joined us.
For hosting me.
Online, we've been joined by Hatem Bazian. He's a Middle Eastern expert. He's a professor of Middle Eastern languages and cultures at UC Berkeley, co-founder at Zaytuna College, founder at Islamophobia Research and Documentation Project, and editor-in-chief of Islamophobia Studies Journal. Thank you very much, Hatem, to have joined us as well. We'll begin with you, Hatem Naser. 2 years have passed. 2 years since Israel has continued its brutalization of Gaza. The 67,000 plus who've been butchered, martyred. The hundreds of thousands who've been injured. And the actual figures are going to be much, much more as per the findings of the Lancet Journal. How can the world still justify calling this a conflict rather than a genocide?
What Gaza war has proved that the so-called theory of the 1 golden billion, which is European countries and America, are the civilized world who cares about their own human rights. The rest of the world human rights are not their priority. So when they say we are ambassadors of human rights, they mean this white supremacy theory that are Western Europe plus America. When it comes to human rights of even some other ethnicities inside America or inside Western Europe, it's not the same calculation, which is why we see double standards calculation when it comes to Palestinians, when it comes to Kashmiris, when it comes to African human rights, the framing of the issue changes. And Palestinians have suffered of the fact that the enemy, their enemy, is one of the most powerful lobby in the American politics. So if it was somebody else, it maybe things would have changed. So 2 years of genocide, the word genocide, despite the fact researchers have agreed on it, is not agreed to be used in American politics. The other terminologies like ethnic cleansing, the war crimes, nobody is discussing this in American politics. So they are giving the green light to Israelis to continue this war.
All right, they are giving the green light for Israelis to continue this war. Dr. Hatem Bazian, thank you very much to have joined us all the way from the US. How do you see this Gaza peace plan, this 20-point peace plan? Is it, in your point of view, a genuine attempt to bring justice as far as the current situation is concerned, or is it just a temporary fix to calm the situation?
It's a temporary fix. It's definitely not situated or structured to bring justice and freedom for the Palestinians. It is an attempt to bring a ceasefire, but it's attempting from the Trump administration to provide cover for Israel with the release of the captives in the Gaza Strip without actually assigning any responsibility or consequences to Israel for the genocide. Also, it's a continuation of denial of Palestinians' right to freedom, to end of settler colonialism. The plan itself, it reminds me of a reconstituting of almost the British mandate by assigning the almost a British High Commissioner, in this case, Tony Blair, and bringing international actors to actually to supervise and oversee Palestinians, as if Palestinians don't have the capacity to govern themselves, to develop their own institutions and societies. So the plan, while understanding that it bring a ceasefire and end possibly to the current cycle of attacks and mayhem that Israel has been putting on the Palestinians, but by no means it's actually trying even almost a tangential or a measure of justice at this point.
I'd also like to understand, Dr. Bazian, from your perspective, how do you see this global response to Gaza? Do you feel that it somehow, somewhere highlights the double standards when, when you see the Muslim communities across the world and how they are treated differently than, say, non-Muslim communities?
Well, I think in here, the response to Gaza have exposed the hypocrisy, the double standard, the lack of ethical, moral responses to what is very clear an act of genocide. At least since World War II, we have been sold or told that the Fourth Geneva Convention, the Genocide Convention, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and a host of other international standards and instruments are to be applied across the board. But Gaza exposed this double standard that the Western world, the United States, the European Union, whether it's in Germany, in particular, Netherlands, even France and the UK, have actually acted and abetted, if not been co-producers of this genocide on the Palestinians. And Gaza have actually clearly made the point that there are two sets of standards, one applied to the Western man, woman, Western interest, and one is applied to the rest. Muslims, Arab, Palestinians are not to expect any measure of fairness and justice to be applied to them, even though that we had the feeling before that, whether it's in the invasion of Iraq, in the US conduct in Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and other places, Gaza have made it so clear of this double standard and the lack of application of the agreed upon international set of rules and laws. So it's a total collapse of the perception or the veneer of international law and international system in front of our eyes. On the other hand, we are seeing that mass numbers of people across the Western world are coming out in solidarity with the Palestinians and also are highlighting the double standards of their own governments and elites. And in that, I think we are seeing in front of our eyes this global solidarity that is actually pointing to precisely this double standard.
That's a very interesting perspective that Dr. Bazian you've presented. Haitham, Naser, I'd like to understand the first round of these talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt that are happening have been described more or less as positive. But what concrete indicators would you as a journalist be looking towards to distinguish this rhetoric of positive outcomes from real momentum towards a ceasefire?
Most important indicator is not happening in Sharm el-Sheikh. The most important indicator is how Netanyahu is discussing this deal with the oppositors of this deal, which are Ben Gvir, the interior minister, and the finance minister of his government, which is Smotrich. These two are representing an extremist parties in Israeli politics, and those parties are opposing any kind of deal, even a deal that brings back what Israel is calling hostages, which were soldiers of the Israeli army, which were taken during 7th of October operation. These people are not caring about these hostages. They want the war to continue until they demolish entire Gaza, kick out the Palestinians in Gaza outside, and establish their own real estate projects in Gaza. If Netanyahu announced an agreement with these two and announced that his full cabinet is fully on board in this deal, then I might take it seriously. For now, what we are discussing is during the off days of the Knesset. So Netanyahu might discuss this for a week. 19th of October, the Knesset will resume its new session. Then the entire internal politics of Israel will play a major role in what to be happening later. So this is the main indicator. The second indicator is agreeing on the ceasefire as a concept, ending the war. Till now, Netanyahu is not agreeing totally on that. Trump is focusing on the fact that the hostages will be back, what he promised to the Israeli lobby in America, and the other details will come later. This suits the American government, it suits Israel, but it doesn't give the Palestinians their right of peace and ending the war until the further procedures might be pursued by Palestinian Authority, by other Islamic or Arab group of new authority to be established in Gaza until further notice.
Right.
What America and Israel are insisting, we will rule Gaza. Which is a very negative indicator.
That is a negative indicator, as you've said. Coming to you, Dr. Hatem Bazian, I'd like to understand, Donald Trump recently met with Muslim leaders, including our very own Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. There was the plan that was then released. Then, of course, was a to and fro between the Muslim countries, including Pakistan and the US President Donald Trump. The whole thing, the whole meeting, etc., was widely covered by the international media. Do you see this whole attempt of meeting with Muslim leaders? There was a joint statement by the 8 foreign ministers as well after that. Do you see all of that as meaningful diplomacy, or is there some other subtext or meaning that you take out of it?
I do think part of it is an attempt of diplomacy, but on the back end, Trump and the US administration has been very much accustomed to theaters and treating the Arab and Muslim world as almost a non-player or ineffective in mustering its own political muscle to bring about any type of pressure on the United States or on Europe, and for sure to try to press Israel to be accountable and to end the genocide. I do think that the Arab and Muslim world, with 55 majority states, almost 2 billion people, have not used any of their real leverage to not only bring an end to the genocide, but actually to take Israel into account. And there are many non-lethal steps that could be taken. I think if we just observe the past week or so in terms of Spain and Italy, as well as Greece, refusing to allow Israeli destined ships or ships that are heading to Israel from landing and stopping at their ports, whether for supply or transport of any type of military equipment. The Arab and Muslim world have not acted in unison to say that not only Israeli shipping is to be prevented, but any type of supplies that are going to Israel from a third party will not be allowed any landing rights on our ports and our shores. This is something that I'm remembering in the early 60s. The late Jamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt actually called on all of the ports in the Arab and Muslim world to restrict this access. There's also the right of access into the airspace that likewise could be restricted, and I think this would be a step that is non-lethal that could be utilized by the Arab and Muslim world. Third, I think the Arab and Muslim world can act to leverage its economic relations with Europe, the United States, or all for those countries that have economic and diplomatic relations with Israel to actually allow for PDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanction, and also to allow for legal cases to be brought against commercial and economic interests that are connected to the Israeli genocide machine. And I would say the last, just in terms of these steps, is I know that the oil and natural gas can be used as an important strategic tool that was used in the 1973, but there has been no even indication of such. And that would tell me that the meeting with Trump was far more of diplomatic maneuvering and almost public relations on a decision and a plan that has already been cooked up and made between the United States and Israel with the European allies, and the Muslims are, or Muslim and Arab states, are side actors to an already completed plan.
All right. Haitham, coming to you, Egypt's President al-Sisi says that real peace necessitates an independent Palestinian state. But we hear Netanyahu saying the exact opposite. To add to that is the misery that the people in Gaza continue to go through as we speak. Even as we are discussing, people are being killed, butchered left, right, and center. They still don't have access to proper food and water. The hospitals are almost destroyed. There's a whole report that has recently come from the United Nations that talks about the level of destruction that has happened, since October 2023. Using starvation as a weapon of war, continuing the brutalities despite Donald Trump telling them to stop. How are things going to come to a pause? How will the ceasefire be eventually implemented, if it is?
Okay, it all depends on how the Hamas side and Egyptian side as a mediator negotiate the terms and conditions with Witkoff or the American mediator, not with Israel. Netanyahu is not interested in this deal. It was Trump who was interested to fulfill his promises with the lobby, the American lobby in the American Congress. Netanyahu wants to continue this war till next October, or 2-3 months before that, because the Israeli election is in October 2026. So under the American pressure, because there is tiredness in the American public opinion and in the American institutions, and it's bringing a lot of criticism to Trump and the Republicans, which need a lot of the public support for their new policies inside America. Trump decided to end at least the hostages crisis. So Hamas and the Egyptians are in a good position now to negotiate at least 3-4 months of ceasefire until this affects Netanyahu internal politics inside the Knesset, maybe differences in opinion, etc., etc. So it might lead to the end of a war. The reason this war have continued for 2 years is the ability of Netanyahu and his government to stay in power, despite the fact some other governments in Israel have collapsed after such operation or defeat from their perspective. He sustained for 2 years. He's hoping to continue the same policies for 1 more year. What Palestinians, either Hamas or other parties who are participating in negotiation and Egyptians have to do is to negotiate something that will protect Palestinians of more death, more starvation, and more tools of Netanyahu to spoil this deal. There is one other factor. Netanyahu has been successful in damaging the effort for a deal in the last minute so many times in the last 2 years. Every time there is an effort to reach a deal, either he starts a new war, he assassinated or tried to assassinate leaders of Hamas in Qatar, started a new chapter in bad blood with Qatar, despite agreement with Qatar in so many other folders. So he's very, I don't want to say smart, but manipulative in this area. So the best policy or the best approach by Hamas and Egyptians are as mediators from the Arab side or Islamic side is to go into every single detail that will help Palestinians get something in return of anything that they are offering. If the plan is implemented as Trump wants it, give all the hostages first, then we'll talk about your needs, then Palestinians will lose.
All right, all right. But let's see, I mean, there's so much of complexity of subtext as far as this whole deal is concerned, that a lot of positives and negatives are emanating from different quarters. So let's see how things move along in the next couple of days. But of course, the talks are going on as we speak. Dr. Bazian, I'd like to understand from you, given your work with diaspora communities, I'd like to have your point of view on how the Muslims in the West are reacting as far as this 20-point peace plan is concerned, as well as the political meetings that are being held between Trump and the Muslim states.
I think if we look at the Muslims in the diaspora, they have been very active. They have been mobilized. At least I have visited these communities in the US, in the UK, France, Spain, and they have been, and Canada as well. They have been mobilized, using their political pressure, participating politically, participating in all of the demonstrations. Our young Arab Muslims on college campuses have been in the mix of the encampments, of organizing, of providing the information, the materials, the books in such a way that actually is very inspiring. And in certain places, they have been very effective. I think if one observes the UK elections last year, I think Gaza was one of the central components of that mobilization, and a number of Muslims have been elected on the Gaza platform. Similarly, in France, the party that was led by Mélenchon actually won 78 seats with the support of large Arab Muslim population that had Gaza on the highlight. And if we think in the United States, one have to look at Zahran Mamdani's election, or at least his upcoming election, and the fact that he won the Democratic nomination with mass mobilization, including winning in New York the majority of the Jewish votes in New York, which shows that the effectiveness of organizing, the connection that is taking place. So I am very at least heartened to see that the Arab Muslim population in the diaspora, old and young, have actually took the opportunity to see the development in Gaza and have been able to mobilize and articulate their vision, their understandings, mobilize their resources to actually be an effective actors, even though that we might not see the full results. I am very optimistic that this will actually bear fruits, if not in the short period, but for sure in the mid-range period. This will be reflective of some of the changes that we are seeing in Europe, but also in the United States on the local level and possibly on the state level, but not yet on the national level.
Last question to you, Dr. Hatem Bazian, and of course, we've taken a lot of your time. I'd like to understand, as you've been working in the field of Islamophobia, and there is a rise of Islamophobia specifically in the West, do you feel it is part of an overall surge in animosity towards the immigrants that specifically have come from the Muslim countries, as many examples have been unearthed in the last few months and years, specifically also after the Gaza war? And what I'd like to also understand is, will this peace deal, if it is concretized, lead to some kind of a reduction as far as this Islamophobia is concerned?
That's a good question you asked about Islamophobia. Even though that we have a number of starting points or history of Islamophobia, if we could just focus on maybe the most recent iteration of it, the end of the Cold War created a crisis in the Western world. The West defines itself in relations to which enemy out there that they could actually provide or create a context for internal solidarity and unity. It's no coincidence that the thesis, the clash of civilization, that was put forth first by Bernard Lewis, a very racist Islamophobic thesis, gets to be made popular post collapse of the Soviet Union by Samuel Huntington. And on page 20, he says, unless we hate what we are not, we can't love who we are. So internal solidarity is actually structured around an enemy, real or perceived. And as such, the post-Cold War created the need to foment, to create, to exaggerate, to entangle the Muslimness as a way for rallying Western society. And that continued to increase and intensify. And it's been used as a way to continue the military-industrial complex. The United States military budget is $1 trillion, while also accounting for 56% of the global sales of weapons. So in essence, using Islamophobia as a funnel to push for the continued militarization and intervention. Duke University had the Watson Institute, Duke University had a report that said since 9/11, close to 4.5 million Muslims have died in the so-called war on terror. So the war on terror has been a tool to terrorize the Arab and Muslim world and use it as a way of continuation of intervention. It's really an extension of colonization and domination by means of using the war on terror as an avenue, including collapsing states, regime change, expansion of US and Europe and Western European footprint with almost 744 bases and 40% of the surface of the earth that the United States has operation in it. So Islamophobia can be very clearly seen in relations to Gaza, where human life is treated differently, meaning the lives of Palestinians are not recorded, are not addressed, are not seen as a human, which again, 4.5 since 9/11 are not recorded, recognized, who gets to be mourned, who gets to be remembered, whose name is actually listed, whose families and life is to be celebrated and recognized, gets us to this notion that Islamophobia has been utilized as a way to push for these policies that at the end cause death and destruction in the Arab and Muslim world. And I think what we need is to be aware of the strategy and how to counter it. I know that just a while back, Pakistan, Malaysia, Turkey, and other countries were attempting to work on challenging and pushing Islamophobia, and from it developed the International Day of Countering Islamophobia by the United Nations. But I do think we need to have a much more serious understanding of how Islamophobia is utilized and how to actually structurally undo it, because at the end of the day, it is causing death, mayhem, and destruction across the Muslim world. And if I, in terms of the research that we have been doing, the level of destruction that have been visited on the Muslim world just in the past 50 years, it's really structured around the utilization and monetization of Islamophobia as a tool for reconfiguring interventions and reconfiguring what I consider to be the colonial present across the Muslim world. And I think that's where we have to have awareness of it and how to begin to counter it and address it on the local, national, and international level.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hatem Bazian, to have joined us all the way from the US and to have given us your perspective on different issues concerning this peace plan and also on Islamophobia, because I feel all of this is somehow interrelated. Haitham, I'll also like to understand, do you feel if this peace plan is somehow concretized, if it is, put into place, it will somehow reduce the effects of Islamophobia in the West? And secondly, the flotilla. The way the doctors and all those who were present in it were mistreated as per the different evaluations that have come out from the people themselves. The interception of the flotilla in international waters, they were not within the territories, but they were captured within international waters. There is a contempt of humanity that is quite apparent, not only for the people in Gaza, but also for anybody else who tries to intervene. And then all those voluntary, people who were part of this flotilla challenge Israeli blockade. Do you feel under the current circumstances also some kind of pressure can be put on governments that continue to ignore the genocide in Gaza through the flotilla? Because we were also hearing Greta Thunberg, who was saying that the attention just should not go to us, but should go to the people of Gaza for whom we have come all the way.
Okay. About the first question, this situation is leading to more and more Islamophobia. We have seen more incidents of Islamophobia in US, according to the statistics of CARE, which is the organization who does these studies in US in 2024 and 2025, more than what happened in the last 10 years, including the years, the period after 9/11, which means, as Dr. Zayan was explaining, there is an internal machine inside the US and inside some of the European countries which work on more and more fear of Islam, more and more fear of Muslims, to fund the security and military spending and give the illusion that there is a new green enemy, which is the Muslims everywhere, not as states, at least as terrorists, which makes this kind of budget or spending justified. The second question, which is about the impact of this mission. It is impactful in 2-3 levels. First level is public opinion, getting the attention back to Gaza after months of slowing down the media coverage, especially after Israel have killed more than 128 journalists inside Gaza. The media coverage have decreased, and they are not allowing any new journalists to enter. So when you bring a mission of hundreds of activists from different European countries, some Arab countries, some Muslim countries, to try to break the siege on Gaza, you bring a lot of attention. This was successful. The break of siege itself and letting the humanitarian aid enter Gaza was not successful, because Israelis have arrested all the activists and treated them badly before sending them to their own countries. There is other level, which is bringing a lot of attention. Maybe legal case can be
I think there are different levels, Haitham, and I think that all these different issues that you have brought to light will contribute effectively to highlighting what is happening in Gaza. And I think the flotilla in that respect has been a huge success, because it has highlighted different aspects of what could be happening and how Israel is moving towards blocking any kind of information when it comes to the truth of what is happening in Gaza. Because let's hope, let's pray that this peace plan gets implemented in one way or the other and paves the way for peace in the region. Thank you very much, Haitham Naser, to have joined us as well. That was Haitham Naser, senior journalist, talking to us. Let's move over to South Asia. Now, our first story concerns this interview that has been given by the DG ISPR to Bloomberg, in which he talks about how Pakistan military's development strategies focus on induction of effective technology. He also talked about India and many other topics. We'll keep it brief. We've been joined by Major General Zahid Mehmood Saab, who's a defense analyst. Sir, thank you very much to have waited so patiently. I'd like to understand, how do you interpret Pakistan's consistent emphasis that it is not part of any arms race with India, that has also been highlighted in this interview with Bloomberg, but focused on building a self-reliant and effective defense posture?
Umar, thank you very much for the invite. Look, any country's strategic military strategic construct revolves around the establishment of the deterrence across all the spectrums of the war. So Pakistan needs to match whatever is happening in our neighborhood. Indians have designs, they have the intentions, they have a will of pursuing their, greater India, Akhand Bharat pursuits. And the whole region is threatened by them. And Pakistan is number one declared enemy, So this is a kind of a compulsion on us to establish that deterrence. Had Pakistan not been able to establish this deterrent, by now they would have, played havoc with Pakistan. So that's the basic theme around which Pakistan is emphasizing, and how Pakistan is focusing on their defense. So defense is residing in Pakistani's nature, and defense potentials are the guarantee to our freedom, to our sovereignty. And now they've included, a lot of serious elements into the, because this Indian Hindutva mindset, political terrorists, this leadership, they are weaponizing everything. So we have an existential threat from India. That's why we need to establish a strong defense. And of course, the priority of Pakistan will remain the indigenous production, self-reliance, because it is self-reliance is the only, guarantee to the strategic autonomy of a country. And in the recent past, we have seen all those countries who were not enjoying the strategic autonomy, they have been threatened, and the security architecture on which they were depending was really challenged, and that has posed challenge to them as well. So that's primarily the basic elements which are related to the defense pursuits of Pakistan, and Pakistan will match to all the capabilities whatever India will acquire. Though they say that they have the threat from other countries, but they are all Pakistan specific, nothing else.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, Major General Zahid Mehmood Saab, to have joined us. We're a bit short of time. We had wanted to discuss so much with you, but that will be for a next time. That brings us to the end of today's Beyond Borders. We have tried to decipher many things, especially from the Middle East and North Africa, of what is happening. We'll continue to bring latest details from there, from the West, and from South Asia in our coming shows as well. Stay tuned right here on Pakistan TV Live.